Hi, my name is Bob Jamieson and this presentation is on the Bali to Bairnsdale alignment and Earth's reproductive chakra. But first a little background. I grew up on a farm near the town of Keith in the southeast of South Australia. Right there. When I left school, I went home to work on the family farm. But after 6 years, I decided the farming life was not for me and I moved on. In the years that followed, I lived in a lot of different places and have had a lot of different occupations. I'm retired now, and a couple of years ago, after spending more than 50 years in the workforce, I decided to tally up just how many different occupations I've had. There have been 25 according to my reckoning. You will notice that none of these occupations refer to distinguished university professor or renowned philosopher. In 1993, however, when in the Philippines, I came across an idea that changed my life. The idea that life on Earth is part of the reproductive system of a created being. The idea that we're part of a created being's reproductive system is common in ancient mythology. It is a concept that is related to the fertility gods. And there are a lot of fertility gods. For example, the Nurungiri people of the Lower Murray Lakes, there, tell of the creation hero, Nurungiri, who in search of his two wives travelled down the Murray River in a bark canoe. There's Nurungiri. A giant codfish swam ahead of Nurungiri, widening the Murray River with sweeps of its tail. The Nurungiri people believe many of the geographical features of the Murray River and the Fleurieu Peninsula are remnants of the body of the great creation hero Nurungiri and his two wives. In the early 1990s, the South Australian government was planning to build a bridge from Goolwa to Hindmarsh Island. The local Nurungiri women objected to the building of the bridge but were reluctant to explain the reasons for their opposition. The controversy became known as a secret women's business, and eventually a Royal Commission was held to try and resolve the issue. The Royal Commission found, among other things, that Hindmarsh Island was believed to be a fertility site, that when viewed from the air, the Lower Murray Lakes resembled female reproductive anatomy. The Nurungiri people also complained that the waters of the Goolwa Channel required an uninterrupted view of the Pleiades, or the Seven Sisters star constellation. That the building of a bridge would create a barrier between water and sky. The Hindmarsh Island Bridge was eventually built. I don't claim to speak on behalf of the Nurungiri people, but what I believe is that this fertility site extends far beyond the Lower Murray Lakes. We all understood, for example, what was meant when the Royal Commission reported that the Lower Murray Lakes resembled female reproductive anatomy, and why the Nurungiri women regarded this as secret women's business. But rather than seeing these two lakes as female body parts, let's say that these two gulfs, Spencer Gulf and St. Vincent Gulf, are those body parts. This, we claim, is the area that references to female reproductive anatomy. And here we could say the Murray River is the urinal tract and the Murray mouth the urethra. There is also the rugged northern Flinders Ranges, the cervix, and Wilpena Pound, the uterus. I created this image that has the map of South Australia superimposed over a diagram of female reproductive tract. And as a bit of a joke, I sent it to Andrew Costello. Andrew has a popular TV program called South Aussie with Cozzy. And Cozzy put it up on his Facebook page, so I guess it's not too confronting. It actually got 149 likes. And a few don't likes. I should also mention that this presentation has quite a few images of male and female reproductive anatomy. So, if anyone here thinks it might be a little bit offended, then now's a good time to go for a break. It only gets worse. To make sense of this, we need to go back to the idea I came across in the Philippines in 1993. The idea, what I now call the God gametes theory, is that our consciousness, our soul, is the male reproductive cell, a gamete, of a creator being. A creator being that, millions of years ago, seeded life on earth for the purpose of reproduction. I have, with the help of friend and mentor Kev Richardson, written these 4 books on the God gametes theory. And a couple of years ago, my wife tallied up all my book sales, and she told me I had only ever sold 3 books, 1 less than I'd written. So the God gametes theory has definitely not been a great marketing success. This, however, is my latest book, and it's about ley lines. Ley lines are found all around the world, and in ancient times they've been referred to as ley lines, energy grids, dragon lines, fairy paths, and the Australian Aboriginal people call them song lines. This book is also about Earth's chakras and vortexes. I claim there is an energy line that runs from Mount Agung in Bali to Bairnsdale in Victoria. And where this line intersects the Australian continent is Earth's reproductive chakra. To explain, let's look at the body chakras. Many cultures from around the world have recognized that the human body has chakra points. There are, for example, crown, third eye, throat, heart, solar plexus, sacral, and base chakras. And these chakra points are connected by energy lines. Earth also has energy lines, or ley lines, which interconnect places of historical, spiritual, and geological significance in straight lines. This is St. Michael and St. Mary alignment that runs from Land's End to Hopton-on-Sea in England. The Apollo-Athena line also intersects numerous places in a near-perfect straight line across Europe. In 1967, Robert Kuhn wrote what is generally regarded as a definitive work on the Earth's energy grid. Here we see Kuhn has identified Mount Shasta in California, the base chakra, Glastonbury in England, the heart chakra, the Great Pyramid in Egypt, the throat chakra, Mount Kailash in Tibet, the crown chakra, and Uluru in Australia, the solar plexus. Note, a female energy line that runs through Uluru also passes through South Australia. Next we look briefly at the Platonic solids. In 300 BC, Greek philosopher Plato described the world as a sphere with energy lines that relate to consciousness. He thought in his time Earth was a 12-sided dodecahedron, knowledge, that over time would change into a 20-sided icosahedron, justice. So Plato described the world as a sphere in 300 BC. But didn't Christopher Columbus discover the world was round in 1492? Oh well, I guess that was just something we were taught in school. We also note that hundreds of hand-carved stone spheres in the shapes of octahedron, icosahedron, dodecahedron, tetrahedron, and cube have been found in numerous places in Scotland, Ireland, and England. Even more interesting is the fact that these ancient carved stones date to the Neolithic period, at least 1,000 years before Plato. Many are on display in the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford. That brings us to the work of Professors Bill Becker and Beth Hagans. Becker and Hagans have mapped what they believe is Earth's energy grid, and many have noted how it references to the shapes of continents. This energy grid also intersects the Hawaiian Island hotspots, Bermuda Triangle, and the Devil's Sea near Japan. Note again, Grid 44 on the Becker and Hagans energy grid is in South Australia, just a few kilometres southeast of Wilpena Pound. This map by Simon Davies, based on the Becker and Hagans energy grid, shows many places of cultural and spiritual significance from around the world. Davies found these 38 ancient sites from around the world align to the Becker and Hagans energy grid. When researching Earth's energy grid, I came across the Pearls of War website. The creator of this site uses the alias Atom. Unfortunately, nothing's been posted to the site since 2013, and there's been no reply to my request for more information about Atom. Anyway, in an attempt to identify Earth's energy grid, Atom formed a triangle around India. Here's the northern face of the triangle running east to west along the Himalayas, and he's used the golden mean, the golden ratio, as the basis on which to track the Earth's energy grid. So why the golden mean? Well, it is based on the Fibonacci sequence. 2 plus 3 is 5, 3 plus 5 is 8, 5 plus 8 is 13, 8 plus 13, 21, and so on forever. And the golden mean turns up in nature just about everywhere. A cactus plant, sunflower, seashell, insect, trunks of a tree, a hurricane, galaxy, and a politician of note. Returning to Pearls of War, Atom now had a basis on which to tether his world energy grid. Following the golden mean, his first energy line, with a western orientation, goes from the Himalayas through Kabul, Glastonbury, Peru, and Uluru. Then, by turning the golden mean in an easterly direction, the line intersects the volcanic hotspots of the Hawaiian Islands, Easter Island, and Table Mountain in South Africa. Note how this energy line, after intersecting Uluru, then passes through South Australia. Atom then sections the Earth into a 12-sided dodecahedron, a 20-sided icosahedron, and a 32-sided icosahedron. This time he uses the Great Pyramid in Egypt as a starting point on which to tether his world energy grid. Here we see the 12-sided dodecahedron. Note again, South Australia. The 20-sided icosahedron. Note again, South Australia. And the 32-sided icosahedron. Note again, both lines intersect South Australia. And here we see the four sections laid on top of each other. South Australia is the only place on land intersected by all four of the Pearls of War energy grid. Given these energy lines all seem to pass through South Australia and run in straight lines, I asked, what other places of significance might fall on the Robert Coon energy line? In particular, I wanted to know if this line from Bali to Uluru also intersected Wilpena Pound. So I went to my local news agency and purchased a map of Australia, one that included Bali in the top left-hand corner. I then got a piece of straight timber from the shed, laid one end on Bali, lined the straight edge up with Uluru, and lo and behold, we have an alignment. The Bali to Bairnsdale alignment enters the Australian continent at Beagle Bay. It continues inland through Helena Spring, Uluru, Olgas. It passes by Mount Woodruff, the highest point in South Australia, Pocatcha, formerly known as Ernabella Mission, Minturpee Opalfield, Cadney Homestead, Mount Willoughby, Olympic Dam Mine and Andamurka Opalfield, Wilpena Pound and the Becker and Hagen Energy Grid 44. It then travels to Wentworth, the junction of the Darling and Murray Rivers. From Wentworth, amazingly, it follows the Murray River to Echuca, a part of Australia variously known as Sunraysia, the Riverland, Riverina or the Food Bowl of Australia. Plotting a straight line from Wentworth to Echuca is 340 kilometres or 481 kilometres if going by road. Leaving the Murray River, the line passes through Shepparton, Bairnsdale and Lakes Entrance. Note here where the Murray River changes direction. On this map we can see how the Murray River appears to run in an almost southeasterly direction until it intersects the Bali to Bairnsdale alignment. It then changes course and heads in a northwesterly direction. So, what should we make of this? It would seem difficult to deny that there is an alignment here. So how does the Bali to Bairnsdale alignment relate to what we claim is Earth's reproductive chakra? Earth has chakra points that reference to crown, throat, heart chakra, solar plexus, base chakra, etc. Thus we claim, like all living entities, it will have a reproductive system. And given the female energy line passes through Wilpena Pound, we claim this remarkable geological formation represents Earth's uterus. Wilpena Pound is a bowl-shaped amphitheatre, and here is a statue of the Egyptian pillar god Shu that was found in Tutankhamun's tomb. Ancient Egyptian mythology has countless images depicting a bowl mounted atop a pillar. Most are thought to represent a form of rebirth or the transition from this life to next. So we now have a model that shows the Australian continent from Beagle Bay on the northwest shelf of Western Australia to Bairnsdale in Victoria as the Earth's reproductive chakra. Next we'll look at the various geological features of the Bali to Bairnsdale alignment that reference to female reproductive anatomy. Number one, Earth's female germline DNA. First thing to note is that gender-based species have two distinct types of cells. There are normal body cells with two copies of DNA, one copy from our mother and one copy from our father. These normal cells code for building body parts. So here I'm suggesting that our living planet Earth has normal cells with two copies of DNA coding for Glastonbury heart chakra, Mount Kailash crown chakra, Great Pyramid throat chakra, etc., etc. Then there are germline cells. Germline cells divide differently from normal body cells. They only have one copy of DNA, a maternal copy or a paternal copy. Here I claim the Earth has germline cells with only one copy of DNA. That, running alongside Earth's normal DNA from Beagle Bay to Wentworth, is Earth's germline DNA and Earth's reproductive chakra. Number two, selection of female egg before meiosis. The second point, a female fetus, when developing in the womb, has 6 to 7 million follicles capable of becoming an egg. At birth, this number has reduced to 1 million. By the time she reaches puberty, there are 300,000, and during her lifetime, she'll only ovulate 300 to 400. This, of course, is an extremely harsh selective process. Likewise, survival for Indigenous people living on the Great Sandys and Gibson Deserts was very difficult. We could say, to survive here, these people needed to be the equivalent of elite athletes. Yet Aboriginal people in the sparsely populated world chose to live in these desolate places. No overweight children here. Number 3. Female egg, Uluru, enters fallopian tube, the augurs. The third point. The female ovaries will produce an egg. The egg must find its way into the fallopian tube and commence its journey towards the uterus. Note, the female ovaries have a similar appearance to Uluru, and next I'll show how these long finger-like protrusions at the end of the fallopian tube look like the augurs. Uluru, the augurs. The augurs, long finger-like protrusions. The augurs again. Some have noted the augurs, finger-like protrusions, actually look away from Uluru. Amazingly, many images show the fimbriae facing away from the ovaries, suggesting that nature is making the journey of the egg from the ovary to the uterus even more difficult. Number 4. Male germline gametes enter Earth's reproductive chakra. Here we claim there's a male energy line that intersects the female germline at Wilpena pound. This male energy line enters St. Vincent Gulf, travels inland along the northern Flinders Ranges, the cervix, and enters Wilpena pound, the uterus. Number 5. Male DNA intersects with female DNA at Wilpena pound, the uterus. The male energy line that has entered Wilpena pound has the potential to fertilise the female egg and return to the germline of our creator parent species. Here we claim, as with our own gender-based reproductive system, there's a cyclical process where germline cells match up, divide, match up, divide, toggling backwards and forwards from gametes with a single copy of DNA to germline cells with 2 copies of DNA. Number 6. Reshuffled genetic sequences return to Earth's DNA. Next we see how a fertilised egg, now with 2 copies of DNA, will continue its journey from Wentworth to Bairnsdale. As mentioned earlier, the Murray River travels in an almost southeasterly direction until it reaches Echuca and the Bali to Bairnsdale alignment. The river then makes a sudden turn, snaking backwards and forwards in a northwesterly direction for 340 kilometres. The Murray River then intersects the Darling River at Wentworth, where it changes direction again and heads west towards the South Australian border. Here we can see the Murray and Darling rivers fanning out, forming a caduceus. In recent times, the ancient caduceus has been associated with medicine, the 2 serpents symbolising DNA, and as with Earth's germline DNA, now with 2 copies, the caduceus has rungs that represent the joining of maternal and paternal gene sequences. The question then is, how do we make sense of all this? Well, there are many places around the world with a physical form that only makes sense when viewed from above. This is the Badlands Guardian near Medicine Hat, Alberta, Canada. Some have suggested Earth might be trying to send signals to other intelligent life forms millions of light years away. Intelligent life that may have powerful telescopes and be looking for planets they can colonise with life. Then there are the Nazca lines. It's not likely that these are natural formations, but the images only make sense if viewed from above. So it seems somebody or something was signalling skywards. And many have claimed the Nile River and the Nile Delta mirror closely the human form. Then there are the ancient Solomon and Luxor temples. Here we can see how the unusual design of the Luxor temple also references to the human form. Is it possible that these ancient buildings were designed to be viewed from above? There is another possibility. These are amalgamates. They are like us, maternal and paternal, and each carries a complete copy of the human genome. The human genome is a 4-letter code made up of the atoms of nitrogen, adenine A, cytosine C, guanine G, and thymine T. Each copy of the human genome has 3.164 billion of these bases of nitrogen. If we type out the whole human genome using only the characters A, C, G, T, we would have a tower of paper 70 metres high. For example, one page of A4, Times New Roman, font size 12, 1-inch margins, type ACGT, ACGT, you will have 4,500 ACGT, ACGT per page. 2 reams, 1,000 pages, 4.5 million ACGT, ACGT. These boxes are empty, of course, but they leave the factory with 5 reams. Per box, 4 boxes, 20 reams, 10,000 pages, 45 million ACGT, ACGT. And that's a stack of paper 1 metre high. But the human genome has 3.164 billion ACGT, ACGT. So we need to divide 3.164 billion by 45 million, gives you a stack of paper 70 metres high. Now that is quite incredible, but what is even more incredible is the fact that males produce 1,000 gametes per second, each with a complete copy of the human genome. So what is going on here? Our theory holds that male gametes are collecting data, and if they're collecting data, then that data must be retrieved. Yes, it is true that male gametes only live for a few days and their bodies will dry, but we contend that the life entity of gametes, the data they've collected, will get back into the germline of our species. That there's a revolving door. The germline cells divide, they check out how we're doing as a species, and when they die, their life entity will match up with the life entity of a gamete of the opposite gender and return to the species germline with an updated and reshuffled copy of our species genome. So to do their job, male gametes need to know the lay of the land. They need to know where they are. They need to know where they're going and how to get there. They need to know that they're part of the germline of these fellows. But what if the souls of these guys are also gametes? That their consciousness, their souls, are the male gametes of a created species. We too need to know the lay of the land. We need to know where we are, where we're going, and how to get there. So is this a model that also explains where we are going as a species? I think it is. Remember, we earlier talked about the very harsh selective process gametes are subjected to by the female reproductive system. Well, it makes sense, doesn't it? Becoming pregnant and carrying a baby to term places a heavy burden on the female members of our species. And to have survived as a species, the female body needed to ensure the male gametes she hosted carried a suitable genetic endowment. If not, her body would see inseminated male gametes as parasitic and destroy them. So what about us? There's little doubt that our species has been parasitic on our magnificent planet Earth, and it is difficult to rationalise the behaviour of our ruling elite. It seems there's a ruling class that is intent on accumulating huge wealth they could never spend in 1,000 lifetimes. And what about the deliberate destruction of our planet's environment? Don't these people have children and grandchildren? And why are we being dragged into ridiculous wars? Wars that, if any go nuclear, will likely cause the extinction of our species. So, is this a selective process, engineered by our parent species? Are we being tested? Our theory contends the parent species are reproducing their consciousness, their souls. So if our consciousness carries the genes that will code for future generations of parent species, then I guess they will want to assess our qualities of character. Is this idle speculation? Well, it seems. Like our own reproductive system, the Earth's reproductive chakra is also being subjected to a selective process. South Australia has long been an anti-nuclear state. Recently, however, there's been a concerted push to build an international nuclear waste dump in our state. Amazingly, it appears the preferred site for this international high-level nuclear waste dump is Wallabadina Station. Its Aboriginal name, Bairnsdale, which is only about 40 kilometres from Wilpena Pound. This is totally irrational. Bairnsdale is on a geological fault line. It is also on an ancient riverbed that periodically floods. I guess, however, if we're willing to accept such an absurdity, then this is sending a message to our parent species that we lack the qualities of character that they want for their future progeny. So what is the take-home message here? I guess it is that our job in this life is to develop the morality, the strength and the resolve that is useful to our parent species. For if we have qualities of character that are useful to them, then in an afterlife will likely be embedded back into their germline DNA. But if we don't have qualities of character that are useful to them, then like all genes that have no use, we will eventually be discarded. Before closing, I'd like to mention that you can find a link to my book, The Bali to Bairnsdale Alignment and Earth's Reproductive Chakra, from my website. Please note, the spelling of my name does not have an I and just a single S. Also, the website of friend and mentor Kev Richardson. Kev is a retired journalist and the author of a number of historical novels. You can find links to his US and Canadian publishers here. Thank you for listening to this presentation.